as you complete milestones as you go through the progression, and then there's royalties.
But the royalties are split with the DotNetNuke book.
In our case, this book was a rewrite, so there
Right.
was original content that is still there. So the original authors will still be retrieving some from these sales too. So for this book even...
Are you talking about chapter 1?
Well, chapter 1, I don't know what he's going to do on that. Last week he told me he hadn't even touched it yet. So, but no, even the current chapters, not all of them, but some of them, we started from their structure, from their outline of the book, this type of thing. So we may have taken a chapter and totally redone it, but it was part of an already set up structure and this. So there was a lot of added value from the past books that came into this one.
Like more screenshots, better explanation, stuff like that.
And one of the chapters I did was the member role chapter. I may have done, a few changes on that because there's been some additions, some things that have changed over the last year or so. But in general, that's the same story it was 2 years ago. So most of that is still original. There are some minor changes to it. So realistically, it is reasonable for them to be making money off the royalties as well.
Did Wrox give you any idea how many, in past books, how many, what's the printing run or what they expect? I mean, they obviously know that it's a hot topic because or they wouldn't have looked for an author,
I think they're being very optimistic. I'm not saying overly optimistic. I'm just saying they're being very optimistic. They think this is going to be a very good selling book. They said that before we started writing this.
We tried to tell them to put on the cover, you get the software for free. The book only costs $35. They didn't want to do that. They didn't want to do that.
I'm curious about timing. Obviously, you'd like the book to be there on the shelf the day the version 5 comes out, right? Because that's when everybody's going to be wanting the book.
Actually, we wanted it there for this conference. But
Yeah, right, yeah. But then you got the conflicting thing that if you get it out too early, like you said, stuff keeps changing. So I'm curious what's going to happen because obviously like 6 months after the book version 5 comes out, there'll be more changes.
Well, 6 months after that, it will be on version 5.5.
So you're already working on like the next version?
No, the next version of the software. Will
Right.
be out.
Yeah.
No, the book, no, it'll probably stay. And this book actually is an overview book. I mean, it gets down into some details on things, but this is trying to give people an overview, to be able to take this book, go and say, okay, this is great. This is the information I need. I need to know more about creating a module. Okay, now let me go get a module book.
Right. Now, Mitch Sellers is putting together a whole book on modular development.
Yeah, I've been following him on Twitter, too, and his blog on that, and it sounds like it's going to be a really good book. Very thorough.
Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And Stan's got a couple of good chapters, on it, and uses a good example,
and I'm editing those chapters, and by the way,
but that's only 3
he's a
chapters.
great writer.
I mean, that's only 4 chapters, right?
Yes, total.
It's a lot of great information, but you can still only get so much when it's that small of a percentage of a book. So I really think, this book is going to be here until another major release comes out, and at that point they'll do another overall book. But in the meantime, other books will be coming out that will fill in the gaps of the changes, the newer stuff, and stuff like that.
That's kind of weird because one of the most frustrating things you do is you get a book and you got to run the example, and the example doesn't run because they changed the software after the book was published. I just wanted that whole issue of keeping it current.
Wrox does provide a place for changes, for corrections, and for downloads.
So are you guys involved, and you're going to be on the hook to do those changes? Or?
Well, corrections probably, and we will be required to put up software examples and things like that are provided so that people can download those examples and that kind of stuff.
I don't think they'll be responsible for updated features, though.
No.
But what you're talking about will almost certainly happen with .NETNuke because it does have frequent release cycles.
I mean, it happens with all software.
Well, yeah.
Well, the one thing that I have learned about version 5 that extremely exciting is that they have, if you go and install version 5, yeah, here's some cool things, yeah, here's some, but it's still .NET Nuke. But if you get under the hood, that's where you really start seeing. They've changed the framework to the point that it's much more extensible. There's a lot more pieces there now that can be used to be able to do better things. In the client API, for instance, the addition of the control modules, you can now directly call a function on your server side rather than having to go back and do the entire page lifecycle on the server. So there's a lot of really cool things there.
The skinning's changed a lot too, with the new installer and widgets that you can put on there.
That was Nick's thing that he was talking about in June, right?
Right, and Ryan's starting to blog about that on his blog.
Is the book going to be available on the web? I don't mean as a book, I
Yes.
mean digitally.
Yes.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they actually charge for certain. If you only want, chapters 4, 5, and 6, then you just pay for that.
And is there any? Are there any plans to modify the book on the web in real time as things become obsolete or as new changes are happening?
Not at this point. However, I have, with the 4 guys involved, there is a big, I don't want to use the word commitment, but interest in making sure the information is there and expounding on it. Because one of the things that I think we have all felt a little frustrated about is I want to go into all this detail on something, and we just cannot do it in this book format.
It just sounds very wiki-friendly. And obviously I like the ability to just find my information through search instead of, I don't even use that, right? It just, as you're talking about the challenges, it seems like that type of environment would be great for it. You still charge $35 a pop to access it.
Well, there's only so much we can do contractually and do that type of thing.
That's the way to do it.
It has to go through Wrox. We really
Right.
don't have.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant.
Our hands are tied so much because the product launched .NET Nuke, the book is, Wrox, and
Yeah,
and we're all just independent
sure.
people just trying to do the best job that we can.
Get a nut.
Well, doesn't Wrox have user content on there?
They do. They're called Wrox blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I seem to remember that.
yeah, they're basically like mini chapters
Yeah.
of information, and there is content for .NET Nuke out there in Wrox
Yeah.
blocks.
But I mean, I seem to remember, Joe Public, Joe Sixpack.
What's that, my friend?
Joe Plumber. Writing in questioning stuff that they've seen in some of the text.
Well, they got the P2P section where people talk to each other. Yeah, so it's basically like online
It's
forum.
been a while since
Yeah.
it's been around.
Well, one of the things that I have gotten approval from Wrox to do, and I talked to Sean over the conference because of a slight conflict to make sure everything was okay, but we have registered .NETNukeProfessional5.com.
Ooh.
And a couple of variations of that. And I still need to do some finalization comments with Sean, simply because they announced after I had registered those names that they're doing .NET Nuke Professional version.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure there wasn't a conflict. He assured me there wasn't, but we want to make sure everything is copacetic before we start doing it. That will give us the ability to continue to blog specifically about it in a central place if we so desire.
How do you incorporate, I'm always fascinated by collaborative literature, because, especially with a revision, I mean, here you have, how many people originally were involved?
10.
And how many people are revising? Yeah, like, how do you get all those voices to gel? And I know a lot of it's technical writing, but
Well,
how do you...
it's like just the other day, a question came up about Ajax.
Mm.